Hello, Holmes families. It's Dr. Zelaya
Mrs. Rayfield.
and we are here to bring you part two of our bullying conversation, our social conflict versus bullying. We have with us again today our special guest.
Hi, Holmes families. I'm Maggie Cahill. I am the climate and culture coach for Holmes, as well as three other schools in District 97. It's nice to be here.
Thank you for being with us again today, Ms. Cahill. So we are going to go ahead and get started and go through our presentation with you.
I feel like we need to have music at the
We
beginning.
should.
Here. You know how on like podcasts, like there's like jingly music? Yeah.
I know. I've been
Yeah.
listening to one and it has music, and what I've noticed about it is it gets really loud at the end.
Yeah.
And I'm like, ooh, when I put music on my podcast, I'm going to make sure that the music does not blast you at the end. But we will have to work on that
We'll
and think
work on
about it.
So, welcome to part two of our episode about bullying. And if you missed our last episode, we really do encourage you to take a listen. It's just a quick episode, but it has more in depth language about conflict versus bullying, what it is and what is not. But in this episode, we're going to focus more on what to do about it since we took some time to develop an understanding about it last week. So, again, Ms. Cahill is here to help us kick off reviewing some important points from our last episode.
So last time when we met, we talked about how our language around bullying is really important and it really matters. So we want to make sure that we're describing the bullying in observable terms. Is it hitting? Is it name calling? Is it excluding? Because when we do that, we share an understanding of what it looks like. And then we're more empowered to actually do something about it, to take steps to stop the behavior and hopefully to help who's involved take ownership of it. We want to really be intentional about avoiding the label of bully. When we call someone a bully, it really perpetuates an identity. And that can be really disempowering for our students. So we know that it can be really hard to shift somebody's perception after that image has been created. So let's describe the bullying behaviors and just refrain from labeling someone as a bully. It really doesn't capture exactly what's going on and doesn't help us move towards solutions for the situation.
That's such good advice too, because I know that I've heard definitely outside at recess, kids say, someone's bullying me or someone's being a bully, and to have that language to talk about there's a conflict or someone might be mean to you, I think is really powerful for our kids.
Right, reframing it.
Right.
Well, I think there's one thing that we can all agree on, and that we know is that bullying behaviors are simply just not okay. And that's the message that we're really working hard to share with our students.
So in our last episode, I shared that I thought this was so helpful to me as a parent of three elementary age kids who often come home and talk at the dinner table about what happened at recess and so did this and that, and have used that word, like I've mentioned to Maggie about bullying. And this was just like such a great chart for me to look at and know the difference between bullying and conflict. What's rude behavior? Because sometimes I think students label mean or rude behavior as bullying. But that all these behaviors do exist and that they're definitely an expression of our students still developing. As we know, they're kids developing their self-awareness, their social awareness, self-regulation. And then one of the things that we continue to work on a lot with our second step program, their problem-solving skills.
I think one of the things that I've noticed, and it just stuck with me when you said social awareness, is that our students coming out of the pandemic and not having so many of those social interactions has really had an impact on some of those social behaviors, especially with our younger students in kindergarten, first and second grade. They haven't had that opportunity to learn and to have those interactions and develop that skill. So that is definitely on our radar.
Right. And that along with the fact that that's what childhood is about, exploring your identity, right? And our social and problem solving skills are all ways that we try on different identities and work through problems. So good point. So what we're going to do as we go through this presentation or this episode is we're going to flip-flop between social conflict and bullying and talk about what it looks like and what to do about it. So you'll see that as a pattern when we go through. And what we have next is just an example. So if you take a look, this is an example of a third grader, and it would be an example of social conflict. So in this situation, a student is accusing a classmate of stealing the dessert from her lunch. So she yelled at him in front of all the kids in the lunchroom, and he argued back that he hadn't stolen it. And then she went to tell the teacher. So this is a one-time situation.
Mm-hmm.
There doesn't seem to be any indication that there's a differential in power or dynamic between the two students, and it doesn't appear to be planned.
Right.
Absolutely embarrassing, needs attention, and we need to get to the bottom of the problem, help them work on communication skills and problem solving skills. But this would be an example of social conflict.
Okay. Yeah. This is the kind of stuff that I hear all the time in the lunchroom and at my dinner table at home of something that's more conflict versus bullying.
Right. And if we keep hearing it, that's what moves us to bullying. So this next example, a different example, we want to be looking for those repetition dynamics. So in this situation, another third grade student, Jenny, very well liked, pushed Linda, who's new, in the classroom one afternoon. So Linda reported this and Jenny apologized. But then the next day, Jenny blocked the door so Linda couldn't leave the classroom. And Linda got the teacher again. Jenny apologized again. And at recess, Linda excluded her, didn't allow her, or Jenny doesn't allow Linda to play a game. She excluded her. So Linda got the teacher again and cried and said, this has been happening every day. So really clear here that there's differential. You know, this is a new student. This is a student, another student who's been here forever. Repetition, and it appears that it has become more planned. So really important to listen to all the dynamics of a situation, right? But not jump to labeling it as bullying behaviors until we investigate it a little bit more. So important to listen, talk to all the parties involved to solve the problem, but this tends to look more like a case of bullying.
Okay. So the next question that often comes up is, what do we do, right? And how does the school support our students in resolving either conflict or, like you said, listening and investigating if there is bullying occurring. So one of the things that we do is we help assist our students with self-reflection. And that's, are our students still developing the skill of self-awareness and self-regulation, which includes reading some cues from peers to see if lines have been crossed or feelings have been hurt, and then modifying their behavior.
And what we included here on this slide is that you'll see the Castle 5 competencies that make up social and emotional learning.
Okay.
So that's really self-awareness, self-management, social awareness. So these are all the skills that go into being able to know yourself, know others, and then able to have relationships and solve problems. So when we look at it from a skill lens, it's really nice to remember this wheel because it helps us understand that these are skills that are still emerging.
Right. And I think that's the one thing our teachers are really trying to work on with our students here at school is having that opportunity to reflect when they're in a calm state and think about what skills that they are acquiring, and then what skills do we need to do some coaching with them on. And then our ultimate goal is to have restorative conversations between students that promote both reflection and next steps and how to move forward. And I think that's really important for a lot of our kids, is that question during the restorative conversation of what do you need or what are some next steps to be able to move forward with this relationship. And also listening to our kids and having them solve some problems. They are actually pretty good problem solvers when we take the time just to hear what they need and what to do next. And if they are struggling with coming up with some resolutions to a problem, that's where we come in and we teach them some of those problem solving skills, just like we have on the screen, the second step problem solving skills. And then we also just want to be very proactive and address things right when they happen, so that kids feel like they can move on. And like I tell them every day, do their job here at school, which is to learn. So the other thing that we want to just to make sure that our families are aware of is that we do have a structure built in to our District 97 social emotional learning curriculum, but just really that we have a plan in place to prevent bullying behavior at Holmes, and that we do send a strong message to students that bullying is not okay. They're going through their bullying prevention unit right now, and that's one of the things that they are learning about, the 3 R's: to recognize, report, and refuse. And we'll talk about that a little bit more. But
I will say in the month of November or October when we teach this, we do see an uptick in reports around bullying. That's just natural. We also,
because we're telling them to do it. Yeah.
Right. And so this is a great time. It's really prime time to have this conversation because we're going to be helping them differentiate what's bullying and what's conflict.
Great. And another thing just to make sure that our families are aware of is that we do work really hard to make sure that we have supervision in spaces such as lunch and lunch recess where there are unstructured environments, but that we do have adults watching, and our supervisors wear bright vests out there. And then one of the things that we did this year was to make sure even the supervisors that we have that are not part of our home staff that we have hired, that they know some of these ideas and these steps when students do come and report any kind of behavior, that we're a restorative practice district, and that our job here is to teach kids. And so that has been really helpful to have all adults out there supporting and reteaching kids. But if there is suspicion of bullying, we do look into the situation and we ensure the safety of all of our students, but especially the student who is targeted. We try to offer support to take responsibility for their actions. We do notify families, we do document the situation, and we reinforce students going forward for that positive and inclusive behavior that we hope to teach them to have.
So now that we've talked about how the school responds to conflict and bullying, we do want to note that there are things that we shouldn't be doing.
Mm-hmm.
So it is not appropriate for us as a school to take a conflict resolution approach or a peer mediation approach when we know and we have determined that it is bullying. So what happens when we do this is that we assume that there's a right and a wrong and there's both sides, and we might unintentionally place some of the blame on the student who's being bullied. So a lot of the conflict resolution and peer mediation programs work towards compromise, and it could further victimize or result in further victimization of the student who has been bullied.
Okay.
Because we know that when it's bullying, those students don't have equal power. Like they don't have equal negotiation power. So we do want to take a moral stand and not bring those two kids together to say like, oh, you can work it out, because we as adults need to step in and do and make sure that student is protected.
Okay.
So just a little note there about what not to do.
Okay.
So as a family, what can you do when it's conflict? When it's just a student coming or your child coming home and talking to you about those recess or those playground disputes that you were describing at the dinner table? We want to make sure that we don't jump into problem solving for them, right? This is when it's conflict, we work towards empowerment. So listen calmly, right? Be curious and know that like you want to reinforce your kids coming back to talk to you about these things. You don't want to shut this down. We find that as kids get older, they're less likely to talk to their parents about problems. So really don't jump to conclusions. Don't jump to problem solving. Just, I believe you. I'm here for you. A lot of empowering listening messages because we want to keep those lines of communication open.
Okay.
So, but in this case, you're really working towards saying like, this is hard, but you can handle it and I can help you handle it. Right. And maybe kids just want to be listened to. Sometimes they don't want it fixed by their parents. So simply listening is often enough. And through reflective listening, sometimes kids come up with their own solutions and their own ideas and next steps. If you're finding that you're getting into this situation, your child needs more support, then that's when you think through like, do they have tools and strategies? And if they don't, then teach the tools and strategies, right? Like, how can we express ourselves? How can we express our feelings? And how can we calm down? With that information, then you can get into like conflict resolution and maybe like role playing. Let's pretend that we're on the playground and you're so and so and I'm you, and like role play some different scenarios. But bottom line being that you're addressing the situation and helping your student take some kind of ownership in solving the problem and reporting it if it continues. Now, when we're looking at bullying behavior as we progress to the next slide, we are checking our emotions because we know that like this stirs up a lot, right? This might stir up what happened to us as a kid. This is like where Mama Bear might come out, and it's difficult to step back, but it's really important to do that to really consider next steps. But again, encouraging the student to keep talking to, or your child to keep talking to you, even if you disagree with how they handled the situation. Of course, you know, in the back of our head, we might have this narrative, well, you should have done this, you should have done that. But we want to really make sure we're not criticizing them. It is really hard to know how to respond when you're a child. So messages of support here are really important. And the big difference here is that you're reporting it to the school. So whether that's reporting it directly to the child's teacher, which is always the best first route, or reaching out to one of the leaders at the school. We also do in District 97 have a bully report form that if you're not comfortable sharing more details, you can make an anonymous bullying report on the district website. It is always helpful to us at the school to know specific information so we can follow up thoughtfully. But if for some reason you're not comfortable or your child would like to make the report themselves, they can go the avenue of the anonymous D97 reporting form. So here you're reporting and you're collaborating with the school. So we're stepping in and doing something. We're not just telling the child to go to school and try to do this and try to do that.
Right.
So that's the big difference between how families can respond between these two different kinds of scenarios.
Okay.
And because I'm always a fan of what not to do, it's nice to know what to do. It's nice to know what not to do. But with bullying behavior, we shouldn't be telling kids to ignore the bullying behavior. We shouldn't be blaming kids for it. It is not their fault. That's a really key message. And don't assume that your child brought it on in any way, right? That they're provoking the bullying. We know when it gets to the point of bullying, like no one deserves that. And it is more complex than just, you know, a two-way street when it comes to bullying. And really important in all cases, including bullying, don't encourage your child to fight back. So I always say that at school, there are adults that are here to help and support. So you should never need to physically defend yourself because you can always get to an adult in a bright vest, like you said, on the playground, or you can always get to a teacher or make an escape plan or, you know, get out of the situation. So don't encourage physical retaliation. That is something we want to make sure we say because a lot of times that feels like the only way out for students.
Well, a lot of students also tell you, like, my parents told me to, if somebody does something to me, I hit them back. And I get that as a parent. Like, you want your child to be able to protect themselves. But I think you're absolutely right. There is always going to be some adult nearby that they can go and report if someone ever puts a hand on them. And that's what we want students to do while they're at school. There may be times that your child is out and about without an adult nearby, not at school. And by all means, we have to teach our children to do, you know, what they need to do to stay safe. But at school, there is always going to be somebody.
Right. There are always
nearby.
people around.
Yeah.
Or they can always walk to the office if they're outside too. They all know where to go.
But it's nuanced, right?
Yeah.
Like I do teach my kids that if you are out in the community and there is not an adult nearby and you are being hurt, you fight back.
Yep.
Like that is it's a different situation.
It is. Yeah. I think it's important to recognize as parents, like we have to give our kids messages, but you know, at school, I think we also want to give that message that, you know, there are people there that you need to go to and you need to report this to.
So preventing bullying, and you might be listening to this episode as a parent or a guardian who hasn't maybe encountered bullying, and through all this time that we've been talking with Maggie over the last couple of weeks and learning more from her all the time, it's always interesting to me how I hear that word bullying in so many different settings with either my own children or children here at school or in social settings with other parents. That word bullying is really thrown around a lot. And so I think this has been really eye-opening for me as a parent too. And I hope for everyone listening. But thinking about some ways to prevent it, we want to offer a few tips to help your child develop some resilience and friendship making skills, but also assertiveness. And I talk to kids a lot about that outside. I said, did you use your assertive voice? We teach that in Second Step every week. And sometimes we really have to model and role play that with the kids because they are not comfortable doing that yet. But so we really would like to encourage your child to develop interests or hobbies that help build resilience skills to help them in situations maybe where bullying might occur. We want to encourage your child to make connections with other friends here at school and make some healthy relationships. And then know the safety strategies like we just talked about. Like, please go to an adult right away, recognize, report, and just knowing that they can ask for help and be assertive and using all the skills that we're trying to teach them here at school.
And as promised, we talked about the social emotional learning programs we use here at school. So Second Step we use throughout the year. But then in October, we always teach the bullying prevention units. So our bullying prevention units teach specific skills of recognizing, reporting, and refusing bullying behavior. So each week we send out home links. So in the last few Hawks, you'll see the home links for the bullying prevention units that we've sent out. And it's a nice way to sum up some of the skills that your child is learning. And at the same time, we also know that no bullying prevention program is going to completely eliminate bullying. We want to decrease it. We want to give our kids tools to be able to respond appropriately when things do happen. But this is a nice common language and common set of skills and tools that we know are important to share with our students.
So just to sum up, Maggie, thank you for being here again and supporting Dr. Zlai and I with this super important message for all of our families. And just to summarize, there is a difference between conflict and bullying. And remember that conflict is just a natural part of our social experience. And while it's so hard as leaders here in our school to see conflict, to hear about conflict, it is part of, just growing up in the social experience that kids have in any setting where there's other people around. But the bullying is never okay. And we do encourage you to contact us directly if you believe your child is involved in or has witnessed bullying. And you can do that directly to Dr. Zlai and I. Obviously, your homeroom teacher is your kind of first touch point, but also through that form that Maggie talked about that the district has on their website. So thank you again, Maggie, for joining us.
Thank you so much.
And here's our little music at the end of our episode.
Thanks for joining us, and we will have some more messaging for you in the next couple weeks. Take care. Bye.